Does God really exist? Does God really exist? This question is such an important question. And it's not a question about being a so-called believer. Okay? I am not a believer. My faith, my beliefs are highly relied upon reason. For me, it's not a question, it's not whether I believe or not. It is a question whether I know or not. And I don't believe in God. I know that God exists. And in today's video, I will explain why I don't believe in God. I know that God exists. Okay? And the thing is, I need to tell you shortly what was my journey. Okay? I came from a quite complicated background. Okay? My parents, they were Christians. But they were what we call New Protestants. New Protestants, to be specific in the term, because there are different definitions. New Protestants are Protestants that they are inside of the Catholic Church, but they don't admit that they are Protestants. They will not say publicly. Sometimes they don't even know that they are Protestants. Okay? And because of that, they will say that they are Catholics. And they will say that the true Catholicism is that. Okay? And this was the case of my parents. And the environment that I grew up, because they were that way, was an environment that you just need to believe in order for, like, believing equals that God exists. You just need to have faith, and faith alone will save you, and all this stuff. I know that many Protestants don't think this way, and I know that Protestantism has different theologies. I'm not here to offend anyone. I'm saying the theology that my parents, they follow. And because of that, like, it's just a question of believing. And believing was such a strong thing in my family that my parents will push these things on us, you know. So to situate you guys, my parents were missionary. They left every single thing in Brazil to move to another country to preach the gospel. Okay? So for my parents, faith was something really, really important. But not just that. My parents never created the environment for me to question. Partly because they were inside of a cult. And as you know, cults, you are not allowed to think. Because if you think, you will not be inside of one. But this is something for another video. My parents, because of the culture of this cult, they will not allow us to think. Once you are a child, this doesn't have any problem. But once you start to grow up, you start to see some problems. And that was what I was asking. Because, come on, man. Leaving everything in your country, leaving friends, school, everything that you know, to leave to a different country that you don't know anything about, is such a tough thing. Okay? It's such a really tough thing. So, I was experiencing a tremendous amount of suffering. And I'm being short here on the story. And the problem was that for me, when I was suffering, it was like, is this worth it? Is it worth it to suffer for this thing? Is it worth it to suffer for this so-called movement? The name of the movement is New Catechumenal Way. Okay, I might make a video just about them. Is it worth it? And then I start to ask questions and questions and questions until I went to the bottom. And the bottom was, does God really exist? I was shamed because of this question. I was humiliated inside there because of this question. I was excluded of groups because of this question. And just because I was trying to seek truth. And making truth the principle, the guiding principle of my life. Okay? In the beginning it was painful, but today I believe that I'm collecting the fruits of it. Like the results, you know, of cultivating truth. And the thing is, on that time, I was questioning whether God exists or not. And I know that many Christians, they just say that it's just about believing. But it's not. It's not just about believing, okay? Why they say that? Because most parents, they don't have the philosophical background to teach their kids. So sometimes they do it in a bad way and try to push that into them. You know, and this creates more harm than solves the problem. And what I figure out by seeking the truth is that God does exist. And in my experience, you just have two ways of proving whether God exists. One is by logic. You know, God is a person. You know, and there are two ways to prove it. So by logic will be you creating a theory. So the theory of causality from Aristotle, I think is really, really consistent argument. But for me, what was the killer was the order in the universe. And not just the order, the beauty in the universe. The beauty in the universe doesn't make any sense. Why beauty would exist in the universe? Okay, some people will say that beauty is subjective, but to be really, really honest, there is an objective component on beauty. We know that if you live in an ugly environment, this will have a bad impact in your psyche. If you present a monster to a baby, the baby will feel scared. So beauty is there in the creation, is there in the world, not just the order, but the beauty in the world. When you look to a landscape, is there. And is beauty necessary? Is it necessary? It could be neutral, right? But you have beauty. And not just beauty, this beauty is grounded in order. And the order of the universe was always something that caught me when someone pointed to it. Because everything being so highly connected, so well structured, is something that, can be by chance. There is a fundamental principle in philosophy that is order cannot come from chaos. It's kind of like if you have zero amount of money, you cannot give me one. So chaos and order are opposite. So from chaos, order cannot exist. Therefore, you will need something to create the order. Therefore, you need intentionality. Therefore, you will need a God. You cannot destroy and say that the order of the universe doesn't exist. Because if that was true, science wouldn't be there. We wouldn't be talking. Being a scientist means that you assume, not just assume, is a perception. You perceive that the world has an order. And because it has an order, you try to seek it. You try to seek patterns. And patterns are just possible in order, not in chaos. Chaos is the absence of patterns, is the absence of any sort of order. Okay? So because the universe has an order, it's reasonable for me to believe that God exists. Because from my experience, and this is a really classical argument, from my experience, order just comes from an intelligence. You can go move back and back and back and back and back, and you will need what Aristotle would call the unmoved mover. So that will be God. Okay? And there's a second way to put it, and the second way is the most interesting one, but it's not the most reliable one. It's the last we can call scientific one. That is by experience. This is the mistake of many people that study a lot. They study theories. They study apologetics. They try to prove their faith. And this is good. They're defending what they believe on. That's amazing. But the thing is, God is a person. God is a person. And because He is a person, another way to prove that a person exists is by direct experience. How do you know whether Daniel exists? By talking with Daniel. By seeing Daniel. By having experience that Daniel exists. Other people might not know that Daniel exists, that I exist, but you will know that I exist. You will know that I exist. And that's enough, because the answer is for you. The answer is not for the others. It's not to convince the others. That's why many of the theoretical debate, sometimes I feel that it's junk. It's junk. Because if these people were taking seriously whether God exists or not, they wouldn't just be trying to understand Him through books. This is valid, but not enough. They will try to know God by experience. Try to find a nice spiritual director. Try to pray and see by their own eyes, not just theoretically. Imagine such a stupid thing. Imagine that I have someone in Italy, like let's give him a name, like Davide in Italy, and I'm studying about this Davide and speculating whether this Davide exists or not. Why not going to Italy, checking his address to see whether this guy exists or not? This is the same thing about God, and I have both of the experience. So for me, the philosophical ground came first, And then after, with my spiritual director, the experience came after. Because you know what? Even if God exists, if he doesn't care, it's the same as he doesn't exist. Okay? So it is the same. It is the same. And when you have this kind of experience, when you start to see that God cares, that he's there, although sometimes you might feel really lonely, okay, God knows. But when you have this kind of experience, it's hard to deny his existence. It's like denying my existence, like denying the existence of air, like denying the existence of these curtains, denying the existence of the light, denying this kind of stuff. Because you had the experience of it. So that's why, for me, it's not a matter of belief. I had both. I have the philosophical arguments, and I have also the experiential argument. Okay? And I paid a huge price because of that. Because truth was the guiding principle of my life. Today, my life is guided by this principle. I believe that God exists. I believe that Catholicism is the most rational religion in existence. Not just that, because of that, I lost family. My parents don't, our relationship is not as well structured anymore. It's not as it used to be, and they are against me because I left the cult. I was defamed. People destroy my reputation. So I paid a high price, and there are truths that you pay more than money because of them. You pay more than money. And that's how much I'm risking for the existence of God. For me, it's a conviction. It's not a whether I believe or not. I'm not a believer. I know that God exists. And please leave in the comments if you have similar experiences or things or questions that you have or things that you disagree to in the comments. And live a nice weekend and live life sanely.